All right, guys, I'll go ahead and get started. I know people are going to trickle in as the presentation goes on. This is the first presentation of the day at the Innovate Stage. Thank you all so much for coming right after breakfast and hanging out with me. My name's Ashe Whitener. I am the founder and host of the Liberty Entrepreneurs Podcast. Can everyone in the back hear me all right? All right. I don't want this to be about me at all, but I do feel like I should introduce myself to try to build a little rapport and let you know why am I even up here speaking. So I have an engineering background, actually. I graduated from North Carolina State with 2 engineering degrees, computer and electrical engineering, and I would consider myself an engineer and a scientist. But in my free time, while I was a programmer, I found economics, and this is what I became passionate about. This is what I did in my free time. Yes, there are people like me who, in their free time, study economics. It happens. I don't know really how, but it happens. And I particularly studied a branch of economics called Austrian economics, which is a very praxeology-based economics about human action. And so I started to learn and understand how money was intrinsically necessary to build individual freedom. And so that's my background. In 2012, I was listening to podcasts on economics every single day, and I actually quit my engineering job, sold all of my stuff, and moved away from Raleigh, North Carolina, which is what I call home, moved away from my friends and family to the Caribbean to help start an offshore bank, a gold-backed offshore bank. And it was very unique what we were trying to do because it was a 100% reserve bank, meaning that we made no loans. We did not risk any of our clients' assets at all. The bank's name is Euro Pacific Bank. It's now a successful bank in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I come at Bitcoin from both the technological angle as well as the economic angle. So I hope my perspective is very beneficial to you guys. My current passion is the Liberty Entrepreneurs Podcast, where I interview entrepreneurs from around the world to try to find out how entrepreneurship has created individual freedom for them and hopefully give some of that advice to my listeners, and maybe they can become an entrepreneur and create the same type of freedom in their life that I've experienced in my own life. So the presentation is called Bitcoin. What is it and why should you care? Right? I'm sure, has anyone not heard of Bitcoin at this point? Well, it's a presentation, but okay, so when I was polling the audience and polling the crowd before my presentation, everyone that I spoke with had heard of Bitcoin, but nobody could tell me what it was. Nobody had a clue except that they heard on the establishment media that you could buy drugs with it, right? All right, I'm sure you can buy drugs with it. You can buy drugs with any currency, right? You can buy drugs with gold, the dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, whatever. But what is it about Bitcoin that's different? And I hope after this presentation, you'll know this. So let's go back in time a bit. The bank bailouts. Everyone remembers the bank bailouts, right? It was a big hoopla back in the day. You know, this had never really happened before. The banks had risked our money. They made bad, risky decisions. And now, guess who's on the hook? Was it the CEOs? Was it Jamie Dimon? No, it was the taxpayers. We're on the hook to bail out the banks. We lend them our money. They treat us poorly. They charge us too many fees. And then they risk our money and they blow up the economy, right? And guess who gets to bail them out? Well, we bail them out. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't entirely thrilled that tax dollars, my money, was going to be paid out to these banks to make them solvent again. So the date is January the 3rd, 2009. And in the UK, the Times newspaper comes out and said, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was the same day. Right, so before I get there, banks across the world at this point. So this was in the UK. You can see right here. This is the rescue plan, right? The entire city's burning, and all we can pay attention to is helping out the banks. I really like this cartoon as well. This is Uncle Sam. You know, not only were the banks being bailed out in the UK, but also in the United States. You know, we're all getting crushed down here, and our money is being poured into the banks. On the same day, January the 3rd, 2009, Bitcoin was made available to the public. In the very first Bitcoin block, I'm sure you guys have heard of the blockchain. I won't get into the technical details of that. But the very first message in the very first block of Bitcoin said this quote, Chancellor on brink of second bailouts for bank. And I bring you back to this day, January the 3rd, to try to frame it for you. Bitcoin was released and made available to the public on the same day that the banks were getting bailed out. right? Bitcoin was released on the same day, very purposeful, so that you had another option. You had another option. If you disagreed with or were skeptical of the big banks getting your money, Bitcoin was now an option for you. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin as financial technology. You know, I've got to go into the tech aspect because I am an engineer, of course. Let's see, can you guys read that? All right. So currently we live in a world where the internet has limitless reproducibility. And what I mean by that, I've got a cat, his name's Garfield, he's a cute guy. He does a lot of cute stuff. I could send you a picture of my cat, and you could send a picture to all your friends, and all your friends to all their friends, and it's infinitely reproducible. Right? We see this in music. We see this in movies. We see this on blogs, articles. It's been great. The internet has done so much for information, more than any other technology since the Gutenberg press. Well, that's a problem, though, because if I have a $100 bill, I can't buy that sweet jacket right there that you've got on, as well as your dress. I mean, I don't think I'd wear either, but I don't want to spend the same $100 to you and the same $100 to you. So money hasn't worked very well on the internet until Bitcoin. And what Bitcoin did was Bitcoin solved a huge computer science problem where you don't, like I just explained, you don't want to be able to send the same money to two people. So Bitcoin was the first, Bitcoin created the internet of scarcity, the internet of digital scarcity. And this is really important. This is the breakthrough that Bitcoin has offered. I can now send you one Bitcoin and I no longer have it. Makes a lot of sense when you think about money that way, doesn't it? A lot of questions I get is, who owns Bitcoin? Yes, so now Bitcoin's the same, because if you try to pay someone with a silly cat picture, you would still own that cat picture, and the person that you sent it to would own the cat picture. With Bitcoin, Bitcoin was the first digital good on the internet where I could send that Bitcoin to you and I no longer have it, right? I no longer have the Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, everything's good, right? Like this chair's a good, money's a good, right? Like whenever I give you a dollar bill, I no longer have the dollar bill. Whenever I give you a picture online, I still have the picture. I can send you an MP3 file, a music file, and I still have it, right? Bitcoin was the first digital object, digital good, where I can send it to you and I no longer have it. And that's why Bitcoin can be used as money, is because it's not infinitely reproducible like everything else on the internet currently is. Yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free. There's going to be a ton of questions. I've only got like 25 minutes or something. I could speak for hours on this. I do on my podcast. But, you know, I'll take questions at the end or in the middle if you guys got them. Just shoot your hands up. So one of the questions I get a lot from people is, who owns Bitcoin? This is a question that the mainstream media had. I like to call it the establishment media, because the theme of this year's FinCon is establishment is out, which is Bitcoin is in. I mean, Bitcoin's not establishment at all. Nobody owns Bitcoin, just like no one owns email. Right? Bitcoin is a protocol to communicate on the internet, just like email is a protocol. To get technical, it's the SMTP protocol. Or HTTP is a protocol. Nobody owns HTTP. These are protocols on the internet that allow us to communicate in different ways. Now, there are gateways, like you can have Google or Gmail or Apple or Hotmail or all of these places that allow you to access the email protocol, right? Nobody owns email, but there are people that give you access to email. Bitcoin's the same thing. Nobody owns Bitcoin, but there are people that give you access to Bitcoins. I'm sure you've heard of Bitcoin wallets, right? Or Bitcoin exchanges. These are people that give you access to communicate or to use the Bitcoin protocol. Basically, Bitcoin is email for money. A good analogy I like to take is, you wouldn't go and drive to put a letter in your friend's mailbox in India if you live in San Diego. Or you could send them an email. Well, that's what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin, one good way to think about Bitcoin is it's a currency like the US dollar, but it's also a payment rail like the SWIFT system. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with SWIFT system or IBAN or ACH, but these are ways to send money. They're called payment rails. Bitcoin is both, and that's a really important aspect of it. Bitcoin is a currency. I can give it to you and I no longer have it, but it's also its own payment rail. So there's already a global transactional payment system built into the source code. All right. You can access Bitcoin in the cloud, on your phone, on your computer. And at the end, if anyone would like to get their first Bitcoin, I'll be glad to give you some for free, and I'll show you how to download a wallet soon. One analogy I like to use, I do work in offshore banking, I consult, and it is faster to strap a $100 bill to an anvil and send it to China than it is to send $100 through the international banking system currently. Houston, we have a problem. All right, let's talk about the moral argument and the unbanked. I saw a lot of people the other day talking about the unbanked and the poor, and this is a big problem. There are billions of people in the world who either don't have access to banking or they're not rich enough that the banks don't want to do business with them. And so Bitcoin was the first globally democratic form of money. And this is really important because money to this point was a very top-down type system. Governments and central banks are up here as their kings and queens at the top, and they dictate to us what monetary system that we belong in, and we don't have a choice. We can't opt in or opt out. We have no freedom. We do not have the freedom of money. We do not have the separation of money and state, right? Bitcoin changed that. Bitcoin is voluntary money. It's a voluntary economic system where you can opt in or you can opt out. It's not tied to a particular territory or flag. It is made for the people. Remember, January the 3rd, 2009. If you don't like what's happening with your taxpayer money and the big banks, you have another option now. You don't have to use it. If you don't like it, don't use it. Nobody's going to point a gun to your head or force you to use Bitcoin. But if you think that it could be a financial tool for you to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, be it in business or be it in your personal life to create more freedom, Bitcoin can be an option for you. My friend Melanie at the back, wave Melanie, she had a great quote the other day on Facebook. She said, "Your money is a vote. Where you keep your money and where you spend your money, whether you realize it or not, supports a system. Is your money and spending aligned with your values?" And she didn't say that regarding Bitcoin, but I read it as that, right? If you're going to hold a money, you're buying into that system. Just like if I hold gold, for instance, I like gold. I'm supporting gold. I'm holding gold. If I hold US dollars, I'm doing the same thing. If you don't believe that your money, your taxpayer money, should be bailing out banks or businesses or killing children in Syria or whatever in the hell they're doing with our money these days, you now have another option. One really important aspect of Bitcoin is financial inclusion and equal access. We're getting to the unbanked now. You know, I lived in Panama. I'm a permanent resident of Panama. I lived there for 3 years so far. And there are a lot of people that are not qualified to have bank accounts. And these people, there's a lot of expats in Panama from Venezuela and Colombia, and they come to work in Panama because we have the US dollar, which is much stronger than the Bolivar or the peso. And so they come to Panama to work, and then they want to send their money back, but nobody's willing to give them a bank account. They're too risky. Venezuelans are too risky, for instance, to open up bank accounts for anymore. Bitcoin doesn't care. Remember, Bitcoin's a protocol. Just like a Venezuelan can open up an email account at Google, they can open up a Bitcoin wallet, and they can send that money back home, right? So Bitcoin is grassroots. Bitcoin is equal access, right? Bitcoin is financial inclusion. I've only got 10 minutes, guys, so I got to get going here, but I got a download link at the end for this slideshow if you guys would like it. You know, one thing about Bitcoin is like, well, who's in charge of it? How can we trust it? Well, it's all open source, right? As an engineer, I can tell you that there is an open source software revolution happening right now, where everything that you write stays as open source, and me as a computer programmer, I can go in and look at every single line of code in the entire Bitcoin source code, right? If there's any back doors, if there's any Trojan horses or any viruses or anybody trying to spy, there are thousands of people around the world keeping an eye on this and looking at it because it's completely open. It's completely transparent. Can you audit the Federal Reserve? Do you know what they're doing? Do you have any clue what they're doing? How much money they're making? How much debt they're creating? Who they're giving it to? No, you have no clue. Is the current banking system transparent? Can you look at the ledger of your bank and see what they're doing with your money? Well, of course not. This is silly, right? This is ridiculous. Do you know how much inflation or debt? I won't belabor this point. All right. We did a lot of theory. We talked about the moral argument. We talked about the unbanked. We talked about the tech aspect. How's Bitcoin used? Who in the hell uses Bitcoin besides the guy with the mic with the Bitcoin shirt on? One of the main areas that entrepreneurs and business people use Bitcoin is because it has really low fees, right? Since Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer money, I can send you money and you can send me money, and we don't have to get the approval of a big bank. We can do business together. If I create a cool shirt like this and you want to buy it, you can send me Bitcoin. I don't need a bank account. I don't have to pay their fees. I don't have to get their approval. Whenever I've set up a lot of businesses to use Bitcoin, and BitPay and Coinbase are two of the biggest access providers. Think of them as Gmail or Hotmail for Bitcoin, right? And what they do is their transaction fees are a lot lower. 3 to 5% you're going to pay if you accept Visa or MasterCard. 3 to 5%. If anyone here has a business, you know that 3 to 5% margins is a lot of margin. Sometimes that's all the margin you have is 3 to 5%. Bitcoin is 1%, and they have a freemium model. If you're a small business, I have a small t-shirt company online, I don't have to pay them anything. I keep 100%. They take nothing until I reach, like $100,000 a month in revenue or something like that. You can use Bitcoin for direct payments. Here, just a couple of the companies that accept Bitcoin as payment. Dell, you may recognize some of these names. Dell, Microsoft, Overstock.com, our buddies here at Fiverr.com who have a booth right over here, Reddit, Virgin Galactic, if you want to go take a space journey, you can pay in Bitcoin. And there are a lot of companies that haven't yet integrated Bitcoin, but they're offering their gift cards, right? Like Whole Foods, Amazon, Best Buy, Starbucks, Home Depot, Target, Belk, Bed Bath & Beyond. You can get gift cards for all of these companies, all of these stores with Bitcoin. One big use of Bitcoin is remittance. I was talking to our Indian friends at the very back about remittance and how expensive it is to send money back home to India. In Panama, again, Venezuelans try to send money home. Colombians try to send money home, and they pay 20 to 30%. With Bitcoin, you're only going to pay about 1%. Imagine what that's going to be when you're sending $100 home and $30 of it gets taken out. I know I'm running out of time. I'm almost done here. 5 minutes. All right, we got it. All right. How is Bitcoin used? You'll see right here, this is a $100 billion note. $100 billion. I actually have 100 trillion. I'm a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. What can I buy with it? Well, I can't buy anything with it. But this is what happens. Governments and central banks print and print and print and print our money and devalue our money, and they give it to whoever in the hell they want to give it to. Big banks, $700 billion in bailouts to big banks, right? They do it, and we are the ones stuck with it. So inflation, now I was speaking with the government guys over there. They don't understand inflation, all right? I was trying to help them out, but they're not ready for it. Inflation is an inflated money supply. Rising prices is the effect of having all of that new money in the system. It makes sense, right? Inflation, you're inflating a balloon, right? You're putting more air into it. You're putting more money into the system. And what happens when you have more money chasing the same number of goods, you're going to have higher prices. It just makes sense. That's what happened in Zimbabwe. Imagine you're saving your money and you're making 50s and 100s and $500 bills working at your job. The government inflates it all away. How much is that $500 bill worth when there's $100 billion coming out, all right? This is inflation. This is the valuation of your purchasing power. This is a hidden tax. When your money is in your bank account, it's being devalued, right? So how can Bitcoin help? Bitcoin cannot be inflated. It's in the source code. There's a limited number of Bitcoins ever going to be in existence. Right? You can hold Bitcoin. It's like gold. It's like digital gold. People hold gold to prevent inflation, to hedge against inflation, to preserve their purchasing power. Here are two really quick examples. I was in Argentina in 2013 at the first Latin American Bitcoin conference, so that's not important. In Argentina, the Argentinian peso has had, on average, 200% inflation per year for the last 70 years. I'm going to let that sink in. That $100 bill you have has been cut in half. It's worth half. You still have the $100. It still looks like a pretty $100 bill, but its purchasing power has been cut more than half. In Argentina, it it reached an all-time high 1990 of inflation of 20,000%. That $1 million that your family had saved over generations and now has the same purchasing power of $50. $1 million can now buy what $50 buys. In Venezuela, I think this shows, this is a good example. The inflation rate in Venezuela is terrible right now. If you guys have been keeping up with Venezuela and the news and the bread lines and the stores not carrying any food and people just panicking, you know, this is what's going on. By the Banco Central de Venezuela, inflation's at 180%, which is still terrible. I mean, this is terrible. This is your money being cut in half. You know, you're just losing purchasing power all the time. The Central Bank of Venezuela says inflation is at 180%. Well, we can't trust them. This is a top-down system. They're going to lie to us and tell us whatever they want. The IMF, however, says that inflation is 1,600%. All right? Both are terrible. One is absolutely ridiculous. What Bitcoin gives you is Bitcoin gives you an opportunity to opt out of the shenanigans, right? It gives you a grassroots money. It brings money back to the people, whereas our fiat currencies, our government currencies, were forced into this monetary system that we have no control over and no say over, and we can't even opt out. All right, so that is the presentation. If you would like to download a Bitcoin wallet, here are 2 QR codes. Bitcoin uses QR codes a lot, right? This is one of the best ways that we can send and receive Bitcoin very quickly, peer-to-peer. If you have a barcode scanner on your phone, you can download the wallet. I use this wallet. It's called the Mycelium wallet. I've been using it for years. I know the developers. It's a very good wallet. If you have an Android phone, you can literally just break out your QR code scanner and scan this right here, and it'll take you directly to the download page. As well as iOS, this is going to take you directly to the download page. I'm going to flip past it for a minute, but I'll come back here if you guys want to download a wallet. Thank you. My name's Ashe Whitener. You know, I hope this has been informative for you. I'll take some questions if I have some time. If we don't have time, just come up to me afterwards. I'll help you get a Bitcoin wallet set up. I'll send you your first amount of Bitcoin so you can actually see a real-life transaction. Here are my contact details if you'd like to get in touch with me. I'm the host of the Liberty Entrepreneurs podcast. Here's my Twitter, Facebook. If you'd like to read more on Bitcoin, the best resource is bitcoin.org. It's been around forever. It has a lot of beginner introduction, tutorials, and videos, and instructions on how to download wallets, etc. And if you would like to download this slide deck, you can scan that QR code with your phone, and it will automatically download this PDF to your phone. Thank you guys very much.